Daniel chapter 6. I want to introduce what we're going to be studying in, and we'll be in the book of Daniel quite a bit. We'll be looking at other scripture along the way, but for a while I've been wanting to get into the book of Daniel. Ironically, we have a trip to Sight and Sound to go see the play Daniel, but I've been thinking about Daniel for a while, and this thought of being resolved, and that's the main theme, at least, of how we're going to look at the book of Daniel here and his life. And I wanted to introduce it through a snapshot of his life, but then we're going to start back in chapter 1, and we may not go verse through verse, but we're going to look through a lot of the verses in here. And we're going to be in here for a little bit, starting on Sunday nights, and then maybe even on Wednesday nights as well, as things progress once we finish up the current series there. But there's as I see it, and this falls into what we talked about Sunday school and Sunday morning, if you were here for either one of those, there are two tests in life when you think about it. And if you pay attention, there's always something that's trying or testing you. There's always the test of adversity and the test of prosperity. And it's always a test. It's always something that comes up. And to stay resolved to keep an even keel and not allow the highs to be too high and the lows to be too low is really the challenge in all things. The lows can get you low and keep you low if you allow the lows to really have that impact on you. The highs can make you think that you're greater than what you actually are. And you're doing better than you actually are, and not realizing that it's only by the grace of God that you're experiencing some of the great things. I think sometimes we take far too much credit and live off that credit we give ourselves in the high places of life. And in the low places we blame ourselves maybe overly too much and give too much credit to something we did wrong or something God's punishing us for, and that's not always the case. But the key always is to keep an even keel about things. So Daniel chapter 6, I'm just going to read some verses through this chapter here and just speak to it as a way to introduce it. But I'd like you to think about that theme of being resolved. Where is there a need to have more resolve in your life? To be so resolute that no matter the ups and downs, nothing will sway you as far as how you see the sovereignty of God in your life. Daniel chapter 6 and verse 1, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give account unto them, and the king should have no damage. Verse 3, then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was in him. What a great statement about him in verse 3. Because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king thought to set him over the whole realm. You think about how vast that kingdom had to be. If you like to organize, if you're one who's maybe administratively gifted in some ways, you don't put a lot of people over a small group of things because you get too many cooks in the kitchen and it kind of causes a mess. You need to have a good ratio of leadership to followers. And I believe that with 120 princes and then 3 presidents, that's a pretty vast land of people presiding over parts and areas of this kingdom that Darius had. And then there's Daniel, who was preferred, chosen, looked upon above them all, presidents and princes. And you would think a prince, pretty high place. A president, only 3 of them, very high place, and only 1 of Daniel. And it was because not of these great abilities in and of itself, not of any kind of great skill or trade or gift. It was his spirit. There's something to be said about a good spirit that allows you to be able to see success in life. I will take somebody with an excellent spirit and less talent more than I'll take somebody with a lot of talent and a terrible spirit. I've been around many talented people that are terrible and hard, and you have to suffer through in working with them, and sometimes you have to. But I'll take somebody with an excellent spirit who's trying, who's has a good attitude about it, who's putting forth effort, that wants to, more so than having somebody with all the gifts and abilities in the world. Daniel had an excellent spirit in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. And so let's look at this life of Daniel here, and let's pray. Father, thank you for this evening. Help us to see what you need us to see, to grasp what it is we need to grasp, to be able to apply that which needs applied in our life here through the life of Daniel. As we begin this study, we pray that you would help us to get every bit that we're supposed to get out of it. Help us to see it. Maybe, Lord, it would challenge us to study this book here over the next few weeks and months in the life of Daniel. So help us here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. The challenge during the test of adversity is not to give in to despair, not to doubt God's love, His power, His presence in our lives, but the challenge in adversity is to understand as much of a reflex as anything that God is in control and we're okay with it. The challenge during the test of prosperity is not to forget God, that He is in control, and be okay with it. We don't want to become self-sufficient. We definitely don't want to become proud. I've seen people come up and be prideful about what they know and what they understand and what they can do. And all that does is rob God of what He's doing and who He is. Pride is a killer. In fact, God looks at a prideful heart as an abomination. Now, think about what He reserves for things that He calls an abomination. He looks at sodomy as abomination, equal to pride. The next time you want to judge and turn your nose up and look down at somebody who, men who want to be with men and women who want to be with women or transgenders, think about pride. And He's saying that's an abomination just like it all. I think we have unique categories that God doesn't even define and what He calls an abomination more than He even does Himself. Because if we're honest about what He thinks is an abomination, it would cause us to take a step back if we're honest about ourselves. Many times in life, we seem to be in a constant state of flux between the challenge of adversity and the challenge of prosperity. But then that's when it really comes down is asking ourselves, and I've had to ask that plenty of times in my life, is God sovereign? And so when I say sovereign, what is it that brings to mind about what does sovereignty of God mean for us? Zane? Okay, complete authority. Gideon? Absolute ruling. Okay. Anything else on the sovereignty of God? Any other thoughts in there? Josiah? Yeah, the boundaries of which He controls, His domain. All those things are true, God. Adam? Yep, it's definitely, if God is truly sovereign, then we have to allow God to have the lead in all things. That means we wait when we don't feel like waiting. I don't know about you, but I'm not a good waiter. I don't do good standing by. I get very impatient when I have to wait on others. The thing that's known in my house, good, bad, or otherwise, is I don't wait on you, you wait on me, with our children and things like that. I don't say that to my wife, but not to her face. But they need to be waiting on me, not me waiting on them. That will that'll try me. God's sovereign over them, brother, But God is sovereign in our lives, but do we acknowledge that in the times of adversity and in the times of prosperity? I think when we do that, that's what helps keep an even keel. Do we believe that God is a God of love and that He is always looking out for our best interest? It's easy to answer yes when everything is well. That's a harder question to answer when everything is wrong. I'm dying on the vine here with this thing. Do we believe that God is with us all the time and there's never a moment we're alone? We don't think about being lonely when we're on the mountaintop because we're good. We have no need of anything. Everything's well, even to the point that we don't even sometimes think of God. But when we're at our lows, one of the first questions we ask is, does God even know? Is he even around? Does he even care? It's that feeling of loneliness, of being apart from God. Now, if I were to ask every one of you, do you believe these attributes of God as it states it in the Bible? I'm sure you would say, yes, we believe God is sovereign. God loves us. God never leaves us alone. But our actions say otherwise in times of adversity. And so where's the disconnect then? Why is it that God has our undivided attention during times of adversity, yet barely gets a nod from us during the times of prosperity? Is it possible to go through life without the major swings from doubt to self-sufficiency? Can you live a life without the roller coaster, is the question. I like watching videos of people riding roller coasters. I actually enjoy the people who have the straightest face and look right into the camera. They might have a phone or a GoPro, and they just look at it, no emotion. And there's like these roller coasters like in Colorado or somewhere high, very, very high altitude, and it doesn't look like there's a gradual descent. It just looks like a drop off. It just looks like everything's falling off there. We're going to win against this microphone one day. And I apologize. Switch over here soon. Trying to make this thing work and figuring out. With electronics. How's it sound now? A little bit tinny. Well, I'll say this as they work on that here. I believe it's absolutely possible. And you'll have to decide for yourself where you're going to fall at, but I believe it's absolutely possible that you can live within the extremes. You don't have to live at the highest of highs, and you don't have to live the lowest of lows. I'm not against the highest of highs, but I am against the lowest of lows. I don't like me when I'm low. I don't like where I'm at in my thought processes. I don't like my judgment when I'm low. But also, if I'm being honest, at my highest, I like what's going on, but I may not always like me when I'm at my highest. Because I can put myself at risk by having a very prideful heart. If you've ever been good at something, that's a risk. If you've ever enjoyed success in an area, that's a huge risk because you think it's you. I love watching fights. I'll admit it. I think boxing and mixed martial arts, all that stuff is barbaric. I think it's horrible. I think it should be banned. But until they do it, I'm going to keep watching that thing. Adam, but what you see usually when somebody wins is they pound their chest, they say me, they bring out their arms. It's all about them. Rarely do you see somebody automatically go to worshiping God. And I always think it's a weird thing to beat somebody to a bloody pulp and say, "I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." It's interesting. I'll give you that. I'm not sure how to deal with that, but I appreciate the acknowledgement, and I'm sure the Lord does. But See a guy laying down there, he's still out cold and starched, and it's interesting to me. But I believe that it's possible to be steady, stable, and resolute during times of adversity as much as it is times of prosperity. And look at Daniel's life here, and we'll pick up in verse 4. I want you to notice his character. We're looking at somebody just like us. Daniel, as far as I know, didn't have an Ivy League education. He didn't have all the opportunities that we have in this modern day, but he had something, and that something was character. Daniel was steady regardless of how other people saw him. Granted, whenever somebody has an eye on you, like Darius did for Daniel, you're going to make somebody mad somewhere. I don't think Daniel was of the pedigree of princes or the pedigree of presidents. When you think of a prince or a president, you think of somebody of very high pedigree, family, wealth, fame, fortune, somewhere along those lines. Daniel wasn't that guy necessarily. Look at verse 4. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. But they couldn't find, they could find none occasion nor fault. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Does it mean he was perfect? No. It just means they couldn't find it. Verse 5. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. So you have King Darius, who was thinking of making Daniel ruler over the entire kingdom due to his exceptional qualities and his character, his personal integrity. And of course, that's going to bring jealousy. Have you ever had somebody jealous of you and you knew they were jealous of you? Not you thought they were jealous of you or you think somebody could be, but somebody actually you would have interactions with that you knew is jealous of you in some way, shape, or form. It happens. And so sometimes you don't want to admit it because it sounds like you're being prideful, but it happens. And it's easier to say, yeah, I've been on the jealous side. I think that's easier to admit for all of us. We've been on the jealous side of someone about something. But there's people who've been jealous of you at various times and for different things. While Darius was thinking of making Daniel ruler over an entire kingdom because of his character, his integrity, his qualities, there were other administrators and governors, presidents, princes, that were jealous of his favored position in the eyes of the king. And they sought to find something, anything, in Daniel's life that they could accuse him of, that they could discredit him with. You ever have somebody go after you and try and discredit you about something? You ever wonder, like, what did I do? Like, why would you want to do that to me? I'll be honest with you. If we're being honest about ourselves, people don't have to go far to discredit us about something if we're admitting we're all sinners. If we're all imperfect. I can have bad attitude. I can be grumpy. I can be sharp. I can be hurtful. And they don't have to go far, but these guys were trying to find something in the life of Daniel. But Daniel, you never see one time where he sought retribution against them, where he wanted to put it to rest or sought to have them killed because they were against him. He never did any of that. No retaliation. I give a sports analogy a lot of times, and I said it at work the other day when there's somebody who, we have a competitor out there, and I said, well, let's let them focus on us while we just focus on winning this thing that we're going after. I love that. And that's the competitive nature inside of me. And I'm not saying pridefully. I'm just saying I refuse to focus on other people and what they can do over what I can do and what I have control over. It's the adage in sports where winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. I'm not saying that to be mean or prideful. I'm just saying it's an attitude in your heart that you have to decide. Am I going to focus on other people? Because it goes both ways, right? You're jealous because somebody else is doing better, and when you're jealous, you tend to discredit. Well, if I had the opportunity so-and-so had, if I had the training so-and-so had, if I had the parents that took me everywhere that so-and-so did, whatever it may be. Or you can just focus on winning. And to me, I just always wanted to focus on doing the best I could in spite of those circumstances, because I can sleep easy at night when I've done all I could for the Lord and with the integrity of my heart. But I don't think I can, and I'm amazed how some people can look in the mirror when they focus on how they can take somebody down so they can be into a certain place of position. And we've all seen that in different ways at various times in our lives. Daniel was steady regardless of how other people saw him. He didn't let other people's view of him impact him one way or the other. I remember one time at work, I had a guy come as a competitor. Everywhere, there's competition everywhere in life. I mean, you think, how's there competition in the world of software? Somebody's selling something to somebody, and they don't want somebody else selling it. It's competition everywhere in everything you do. And I'm not a competition junkie by nature, but whenever there's something to be done, I like competing. I like winning. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And winning means giving my best and putting my best foot forward. But I remember a guy coming in, this is when I was in government, and he had a competing product, and he goes, he called me up. Hey, Mike, how's it going? I better be careful what I say. These people are friends on LinkedIn with me. I have no idea who's watching anymore. I have people that I used to work with that watch our messages online. I'm like, great, but friends with them on Facebook. It's up to them. He goes, hey, I'm going to squash you like a bug. And he wasn't like calling up joking. He was dead serious. It's affected me since I moved out of government as a contractor, where he's government and I'm trying to gain business. I'm just known as that guy who did not want to do what he did and didn't want to work with him in a way, because we had totally different views and different perspectives about things. And I don't sit there and think, how can I get this guy Mike and really beat him? I just say, how can I just keep focusing on doing my best and letting my success become out of what I do, not because of what I do to somebody else. You say, why are you talking about this, Pastor? I'm just saying, if you don't have the right mentality, you will not handle the adversity, and you will not handle the prosperity. It's the attitude and the spirit of your heart that impacts what you do on a regular basis, that impacts those times and those thought processes that happen in adversity and prosperity. You want to be the same person all the way through. You want to be consistent all the way through. Daniel did not let how other people saw him waver him in any way, shape, or form. Look at verse 6. Then these presidents and princes assembled together. There's a coalition of the willing. They assembled together to the king and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. They're really sweetening him up here. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Spoken like true politicians. If I can't win the straight up way, I'll make a law so that I ensure I win in some way. Okay, this is the ultimate conspiracy of people getting together and saying, hey, we don't like this guy over us. You don't like him either, right? You want to have control over, you want autonomy, you want to have control, you want to have... Okay, let's get out the one guy. Make no mistake, this isn't an issue about Daniel, this is an issue about the heart of people regarding Daniel. Yep. Because as soon as Daniel's moved out, let's say the king put somebody else there, they'll find a reason. Yep. You don't think the three presidents were next? If they didn't like them, if the majority of people, the 120 princes, didn't like what they had to say, right after them, that's not fair. Such is life. Yeah. I'm telling you, the heart of man is wicked in all his ways. Yeah. We have no clue the depths of our wickedness whenever we think we need to have something go a way we want it to go. Look at verse 8. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and decree. Well, if everybody's saying this, if the majority feels this way, if there's smoke, there must be fire. Let me go ahead and sign off on this. Verse 10, now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. That is the exact reaction every single one of us has when everybody's against us, right? Let me open up the windows. Birds are singing, sun's shining, no humidity in the air, everything's wonderful. Let me pray 3 times a day, right? No. We're calling up our best friend, man, you know what they did to me, these guys, all these princes, all these governors, all these counselors. Can you believe what they did? Let me take it out to tell people about what's happening. I'm going to go live in a second. I'm going to tell them exactly what's going on. That's the attitude we have, right? We want to tell everybody about how somebody's wronged us, but we never tell God about what's going on in us. Daniel went right to God. Nobody could dispute Daniel's work ethic. Nobody could dispute his character. These men were deceitful. And they had the numbers. They knew the only way to hurt his credibility with the king would be to devise some type of trap that would force him into some kind of moral dilemma with his God. They used God against him. In fact, let me say it like this. They used his God against him. From a man's worldly perspective, that's what they were trying to do. So I go back to the beginning. Is God sovereign over all? You know, the world can't manipulate God. There's nobody that can move and shake God against his own children. There's nothing that can happen in this world, anything in our nation, anything in our lives, in our careers, in our relationships, from those who don't know God to make God move against his own children. It doesn't happen. Daniel knew this. And from man's view, their plan was pretty brilliant. I mean, this is the stuff that politics are made of. This is the stuff that governments are run by. You don't think this happens today? It happens all the time. I mean, we're in a season now, in the last week and this week, where Supreme Court's going to be handing out judgments and rulings on certain things. There was something about chemical abortion medicine that came out, ruling on that. The issue was that it was brought by the wrong people concerning a wrong aspect of that, which is why basically nothing changed, not chemical abortion, but the guns, about gun laws. Nothing changed because it was brought about in the wrong way. Certain laws don't die easily. They just come back in different forms. They get brought up in different ways from different angles. Why? Lawyers, politicians, and they're looking for loopholes and ways and everything in, and that's how we are. We're no different. We try and lawyer and politic our way into things. Amazing whenever we start having trouble and all that, everybody's a lawyer. They start talking in lawyer terms and start saying, I mean, it's laughable how people speak as if we've gone to law school and we know the law and all that. No, you don't know the law. And if you knew the law, you wouldn't be in trouble with the law. But their plan was brilliant. They convinced the king to sign a law that required everyone in the land to worship him, the king, as God. Anyone who rebelled against that decree would be thrown into the lion's den. Now, knowing that Daniel would never bow down to anyone else but his God, these administrators and governors thought that they had devised the perfect plan to rid themselves of Daniel. And they had the king right in the palm of his hand. Now, Daniel was in a moral dilemma right from the get-go. We saw that in verse 9 and 10. Should he continue with his daily prayer routine to the one true God, or should he submit to the decree of King Darius? I would love to say in a given situation, I would have done the same. But I know me better than that I've given in to man more than I've given in to God at times. I've sat silent while people are using the Lord's name in vain. Not a big argument, not a big fight, right? I stood by while something I knew shouldn't happen and didn't say anything about it because I didn't want to be a tattletale. And it later came back to bite me. We've all done similar things like that. We all had opportunities to stand for the Lord and maybe chose otherwise. Well, it wasn't that big of a deal. Does that matter, I guess, is the question. Does it being a big thing or a little thing really matter if it means obeying God or obeying man? I would assume that maybe it's possible to look at it as all of it matters at that point. I mean, if you want God to take up your side every time the potential for you to be wronged is happening, how would God like say, yeah, you're okay. This is not a big deal. You're a big boy. You can handle that. Or do you want God to take up your side all the time because he's right and you want right done? See, we think differently about it when we think from God's perspective what we want him to do for us, but then when it comes to taking sides with God against man, we're not always present like we want God to be present for us. I'll come back to that. Daniel knew the consequences that would ensue if he rebelled, but he stood firm in his convictions. And the Bible even says that immediately after hearing of this decree, Daniel went home to pray with the windows wide open for everyone to see. I don't think he had a rebellious heart to be rebellious in and of itself. That's more my mentality. That's more of my spirit. I just want to buck against the system. I want to push back. I have a rebellious heart and rebellious nature in some ways about that. I want to push envelopes sometimes. That wasn't Daniel's desire. It was, okay, God, I'm choosing you. You got to at least love that. King Darius, bound by his own law, had no choice but to do what? Punish him and throw him into the lion's den. This is where Daniel would face his greatest adversity. Look at verse 19 and we'll be done. Daniel was steady regardless of how people saw him. He was steady regardless of what other people did to him. And he was steady in remaining strong. Look at verse 19. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God whom thou servest continually able to deliver thee from the lions? Imagine seeing that, expecting that guy to be shredded. Imagine just to see him bones licked clean by the lions. You see Daniel just hanging out and the lions. I mean, it's not like David where he conquered a lion. Pretty amazing feat. If he took out the lion, I mean, Daniel, wow. No, he just coexisted with them. That, in some ways, is even greater than slaying it. Verse 21, then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. Very similar to what they said when the presidents and everybody went to the king to manipulate him. Daniel actually meant this with his heart. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. He didn't take credit for it. He gave God all the credit for it. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Now, here's what the Bible doesn't say. The Bible doesn't tell us what was going on through Daniel's mind during that long, dark night. You have to wonder maybe if he was tempted to doubt what he believed about God, if he was having a moment of crisis in a dark den of lions who can easily see him in the dark, but he may not have been able to see. It doesn't say that he thought to himself, God, I've been faithful to you, and now I find myself here in this forsaken place. Why, God, oh, why? You don't see that. You don't see him saying ever, God, I thought you loved me. You don't see him saying, God, I thought you would take care of me. What have I done to deserve this? You never see him say, why me, God? Yeah. You ever notice that nobody throws a pity party better than you for yourself? I mean, I'm not that great at throwing parties. That's my wife's deal. She could throw a good party and put a good get-together for people, but nobody, and I mean nobody, throws me a better party for me than me when I give myself a pity party. How about you? Oh, you know what, honey? I could really use some decorations. I got a big pity party planned for myself here. I really need some help. You know, I want the little woo things out there. I want some bubbles that I can blow. I want the hat. I want the whole 9 yards. No, I don't need any of that for me, and I can have a better party than without all those favors. I don't need anybody to bake me a cake. I don't need my favorite cobbler. I don't need presents. I don't even need people. I can throw the best pity party all by myself. You ever do that for you? And just the best pity party you could ever throw is the one you throw for yourself. Nobody needs to help you. Daniel never had that party. Nowhere do we see he had that party anywhere. We might never know if Daniel struggled with doubt during that difficult time, but we can see from his answer to the king in verse 21 and 22 that his faith remained strong in the morning. All through the night. Bypassed the pity party and just said, "Oh, thee king, live forever. Look what my God did." One of the best revenge that you can ever do, if you want to call it revenge, and for lack of a better word, I'll use that, is when people are against you, you never let them see it. You never give them the benefit of it. You never let it bother you. You stay resolute, resolved that God's in control. Even if it does bother you, and it should. How could it not bother Daniel? Daniel, nowhere does it say that he was flippant about it. Nowhere does it say that he was unaware. He knew exactly what was going on. But he made a decision in a place of moral dilemma that I'm going to trust the Lord. I'm going to let him have his way. Now here's the part that we don't talk about much. God allowed every bit of it to happen. You ever think that whatever's happening to you, God lit it because he gave you the capability, the propensity to honor him in it? And the delta between the ability and the trust that God had in you, that if you would choose him and allow him, and what you actually did, how big of a difference is it? Sometimes we get there in the end. Sometimes it's a long journey to get to that place. And there's other times where God wanted us there from the beginning. And we didn't quite meet him there to start with. I'm glad we got there. I'm glad we got to that place. And so often we can now testify of things in the past, saying God did it. But man, I can't say it as greatly while I'm in it. Because I'm in the lows of the lows. I'm in some of the worst places I've ever been. But no matter what, if you believe God is sovereign, he placed you there. And if he placed you there, he gave you grace to allow you to overcome what was happening there. But did you see it? Or did you miss out on something that God could have done because you were throwing your pity party? And the attendance list was full. Me, myself, and I were all there. Was I blaming others? Was I bad-mouthing the situation? Was I asking God where he was at? Was I saying, why me? That's the delta. That's the thing that God says, it's not quite what I had in mind for you. It's not exactly how I thought this would go for you. I'm not saying God was surprised by it. I'm just saying it wasn't his plan to have you suffer that. The crisis wasn't necessarily for you to be handled like that. That's not what he wanted. That's not where the growth was meant to happen. The growth was meant to happen through trusting him. Daniel passed this test of adversity with flying colors. We're still being tested, though. We still have opportunity to pass some tests that are ahead of us. I made a statement to one of my kids that something I see that's happening in our church I'm very excited about. I won't get into it. I won't discuss it. I regretted even talking a little bit in detail to one of my kids about, but I saw it, and then when I said it, I took a step back and said, "There's going to be adversity coming." I'm not prophesying or anything like that. I just know where God does great works, it comes at prices sometimes.
Yes, sir.
And if we can stomach the sacrifice and the challenge and the adversity, the prosperity is there. It's a promise of God.
Right. Yeah.
It's not empty, but it doesn't say it comes without a price. And so there's an anxiousness of seeing God do something great, but there's also a recognition that it's going to take a great God to get you through to be able to enjoy that greater moment, that greater opportunity, whatever it is that God's willing to do. And so I say all that to say this, to encourage you and to challenge you. Pay attention to what goes on in your life. Resolve to be steady. Not letting that high get too high and that low get too low. And not being so negative like, oh, it's great right now. I can't wait till the bottom falls out of this thing. But to say, hey, if there's going to be different levels of growth in my life, there's probably going to be different devils along the way too. And I need to be ready for this. I need to prepare my heart. And the better I admit and acknowledge it up front, the better the chance I have to allow God to do what He wants to do, because He's sovereign over all. He sees it all. Some of you are in adversity in different things right now. Accelerate the learning curve by allowing Him to work it out, allowing Him to do it and trusting Him through it. Accelerate that learning curve. The more you doubt Him, the longer that lesson's going to be. And I don't know about you, I hate flunking anything, and I hate having to take it twice.
Yes, sir.
It's good to let God have His way.